They will use your own people to hurt you. That's what was hurtful. Them white folks will tell you it's business and know it's personal. They make you sell your soul, but that money won't reimburse you. Had you
There
spinning
you
your
are.
wheels like a
Can
jerk.
you guys hear me?
Yes.
All right. Well, what's happening is that Restream is making modifications to the way that it works in real time, more or less. New changes since the last time we used it. So, my apologies, everyone. We're running a little bit behind here, but I think we're good, and we'll jump right in here. Everyone can hear me. Oh, there we go. And I always do this somehow or another. But you know what? We'll figure it out eventually. Here we go. Locked in, everyone. Stop the music. Good morning. Happy Friday.
Good morning.
Happy Friday.
So, the recovery time wasn't too bad, about 3 minutes. Welcome back, everyone, here.
Could have been worse.
Joining us live today, Kees Baggerman. Am I saying that right? The last name.
I've worked for an American company for so long that I don't really I've heard my name in so many ways and so many variants that I'm like, I listen to Kees. And as you know, Brian, I've got 4 kids. So typically I listen to Hey, because that's what my kids refer to me when they're calling me. So, you can call me Kees. That's the easiest.
And do your kids also have unique names, or did you make it a little bit easier for them?
So it's unique in the sense that it's a very Dutch name, right? So Kees is like John in the U.S. It is a very traditional kind of old school name. But my kids have a little bit more international names, if you like. So we kind of anticipated on world domination for my kids, making their names easier to pronounce.
Are you originally from Netherlands or?
I am. Yeah. I'm as Dutch as I can be.
So my fiance, he's from Suriname. If you know that,
Yeah.
there's a lot of Surinamese in Netherlands, and he speaks Dutch.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, so that's cool.
Lekker.
There you go. Yeah.
I do know that. Yes, I know a couple words.
Well, in all honesty, the Surinaam's food is something that we would call lekker, because Dutch, like the Dutch cuisine is kind of flat and not really
You
outstanding.
love that.
Yeah.
I'll make sure to tell him.
So interestingly enough, so I worked for Login VSI for 10 years. I spent a lot of time in the Netherlands. I never met another person with your names.
Well, what can I say? It's if you look at kind of the heritage that I have, my grandfather was named Kees, and his father and his grandfather was they were all Kees, which means that right now, if you go to a birthday party and we're all there, and you call out my name, there's a chance that 7 people will look over to you. Yeah, exactly. So
That's great. So I know we jump right in, and sometimes people only watch small portions of this, so that's cool. But I would say, if you don't mind, Kees, introducing yourself, what you do.
No, absolutely. So my name is Kees Baggerman. As we were already talking about, I've been I've lived in the Netherlands for all my life. Last almost 12 years, I've worked for Nutanix. Started there as a performance engineer, and then kind of moved my way into more senior roles, management roles, and now I'm senior technical director of performance and solutions engineering. And my team focuses on end user computing and healthcare. So that's kind of the 2 parts that we lead. I've got peers that do SAP HANA, databases, hybrid multi-cloud, cloud native, stuff like that. So we cover a broad range of things. And then if you look at what our responsibilities are within Nutanix, it's kind of threefolded. And that's kind of where I know Brian from. Is the first piece is evangelizing, which is in the broadest scope of the word. So we'll present at Nutanix.next, at local events, previously at Citrix Synergy and VMworld and VM Explorer, stuff like that. But it also involves writing collateral. reference architectures, best practice guides, solution notes, and a concept that we call NVDs, Nutanix Validated Designs. NVDs and reference architectures, if you look at them, they contain a lot of performance benchmarking. So you'd see that there's a lot of, kind of what we tested and how it performed. That's captured in our documentation. That's kind of lead into the second pillar of what we do is improving the product. In essence, we're a weird bunch in the organization because we're an R&D funded organization. I report into PM function, and the majority of the work that I do is in sales or customer focused. Not sales because that would piss off my engineers, but customer focused. So the second part is improving the product, both on a functional side and a performance side. So if we see regressions, and we'll go back to engineering, tell them what we tested, tell them what we've seen and how we think we can improve. But as we're in kind of a PM function as well, we have a PM function for end user computing, and we report, or we give him, in this particular case, it's him, kind of directions of what we think we need to add to the product to make it even better for the workload.
Who is him, by the way? I probably know him, I would imagine.
It's a guy called Prashant, and he came from Omnissa. Relatively new, so he's with us for the last 3 months, I'd say.
Okay.
No, it's longer. It's 6 months. Time flies when you're having fun.
That's true.
So that's our PM, and then the third one, and I kind of talked about that already, is kind of when there's a large strategic or complex situation, prospect or customer, field teams can pull us in, and we'll try to help as much as we can. I lead a global team. Many of you you've met Brian before, but covering anything between Sydney, Australia, and then Kansas City, US, and anything in between. So that's me and the team that I try to lead, because these folks are pretty self-steering. So I get to spend a lot of time with additional things.
So I want to double click on that because Arvi and I had an interesting conversation. I guess what I would say, so like my first relationship with Nutanix overall, and a lot of people may not know what that is, but Nutanix back in the day, I guess maybe they still pitch themselves as this, but they were a hyper-converged infrastructure vendor at the time. And a buddy of mine, shout out to Joe Trav, he's a fractional CISO these days. He was like, you got to check this stuff out, Nutanix. It's like the newest, coolest way that makes everything so much more simpler. And this is when I was sort of like getting out of IT consultancy about a decade ago. So that was like kind of my first interaction with Nutanix. And then I got to know people like John Kohler and Andrew Mills and Dwayne Lessner and those people along the way. And I think I met you through Mark Plettenberg. But back to the point that I was going to make is like, I kind of saw myself aligning with Nutanix from a cultural standpoint. I would say like, I thought like I had that level of grit and tenacity that they kind of displayed. And I thought that I would fit. Now that was a bit of a controversial period of time for Nutanix. They were doing some interesting stuff like setting up in Mandalay Bay and getting kicked out by VMware. Yep. Obviously, since then, they've kind of grown into a more mature, I would say, company these days. And maybe there's still literally that edge. But Arvi told me something really interesting, and I'd like for her to share it. And then we'll get to
put me on the spot. No, I'm kidding.
Absolutely.
No, I was just talking to Brian. It's kind of funny in the sense that like I'm a recruiter. I work with a ton of startups, and placing candidates for them, talent, whatever it is that they're looking for in the GTM side. But one of the biggest things that always comes up is in the startup world is, we don't want people from like these huge companies or these huge corporations. And obviously Nutanix is one of them, but not just putting it on you guys, just saying, it could be Apple, could be Oracle, all these things. And mainly comes down to like, they might not understand the startup world. Like we move fast, we move, we don't have anything built out for us already. You're going to have to be the one who built it. I guess I mean, you're on the inside and you've been on the inside for a very long time. How does that, is that true?
I think it holds a certain level of truth. So what you would see, and I think Brian kind of hit the nail on the head there. The people that he mentioned, and obviously there's a whole lot of others. They've been around for a very long time, which means that they've been through that startup phase. They know how to build.
Yeah.
They know how to operate, and that is a very so the kind of the mindset difference here is build versus operate. But if you know how to build properly, then the operate piece gets easier, and then you can build more. And I think that's what eventually you want to have in kind of a balance in your organization. And I think especially the people that Brian mentioned are very well suited to have that balance between, all right, this is something that we can kind of operate and be like, have some lifetime out of that. Let me go into this and let me research this. And that's kind of the freedom that we still have within Nutanix. So obviously we went from this little scrappy startup. I joined when we had 500 people.
That's crazy to think.
If you look at where we're now, that's a whole different.
Put it into perspective for a second. You said where we are now. So like I'm looking at you guys, and March of 2026, since October of last year, you guys have almost hired 1,000 people. You're at 10,000 employees right now.
It's crazy.
So being part of that relatively early batch, especially in the EMEA, because obviously the company started as your typical Silicon Valley story, just a few people with a good idea, and then moved on with that great idea. Being very early made me realize that I love coloring outside of the lines. I love working outside of my cubicle, outside of kind of the responsibilities that my role would have, and I still do. Right, because if you look at, especially solutions engineering or solutions and performance engineering, if you look at kind of how we're positioned, we're well positioned to kind of have an opinion in any of these topics without, stepping on people's toes too much. And that's something that, if you want to, I think that makes a difference in kind of the startup world versus something that's maintainable or operatable. If you are in a startup mode and you step on somebody's toes, you'll just shrug it off and move on. If you're in that mode of operations, sometimes you have to take a step back and say, apologies for stepping on your toes. Here's how we're going to do it. This is kind of, how we're going to move forward with this. So that's a whole different world, if you'd like. And sometimes you need that speed and agility. And sometimes you need that to have take that step back and go, all right, how do we move forward?
And so, like, would you say it's fair to make the statement that people that work for certain companies carry a lot of the similar, or I guess similar is a good word, the characteristics, traits?
I think you can kind of see that, right? I mean, and I think that's even a more question to Arvi than for me, but I think that people tend to
Let's
hire.
Interview her.
I think people like to hire for the culture that they have.
Yeah.
So that means that if you would fit into the culture that I have, you'd be a good hire. But maybe, just maybe, I want to hire you because you have a different mindset or a different point of view or coming from a different culture. So that's kind of the paradox in this, is that often people go for this kind of uniqueness in culture, but in reality, you might be better off kind of diverse in culture, but having like that overarching do good for your customer kind of vibe.
That was the kind of thing that I was thinking, more of like an identity of grittiness or resilience or whatnot. I would say like the people that I met from Nutanix have shared that as a commonality, I would say. But yeah, I'd love to get Arvi's opinion on it as well.
No, it's funny that you mentioned that. I actually just wrote a post about it a couple of days ago. I think especially
we did not talk about this, right? This is just this is coincidence.
We talk about culture a lot, like you said, and I think it's not that people really, what they're trying to say is that I don't want to hire just for the culture I have in, but I want to hire as a culture add, like the diversification that you mentioned, especially in startups. I mean, you need to hire what you don't have, because that's the only way you're going to push forward. Like if you hire a bunch of like yes men and yes women and people that can't challenge you and they can't push you, or, you know, as a founder, yes, you're up to a certain level and you have to think about the entire vision, but you also need to surround yourself with people that are going to push that vision and say like, is that the best way to get there, or is this the other way? So yeah, I totally agree. I think you need to hire for culture add, and sometimes you need those operational people in your startup, because I mean, how else? I mean, they come from an SOP mindset already and like operation mindset. So it's sometimes the best way to build your startup.
Good
And as
point.
long as they understand where they're coming into, like, hey, I know you come from this environment. Here, you're going to have to build the environment that you came from. Are you okay with that?
Well,
Then yes, you know,
I got a question for both of you in this instance, because you both bring a unique perspective on it. Like, if you are not homogenous, it's uncomfortable. It's more challenging. It's difficult for you. You're swimming against the current. If the current is going in one direction, you're bringing in someone that's swimming the opposite direction. It's uncomfortable for them. And the parallels that I'll use is like women in the tech workspace. Like, you know, things are much different now in 2026 than they were when I started out in technology in 2006, right? But still, like, a lot of these startups are male dominated, or even they're female dominated. And then one or the opposite gender, for example, is coming in and to my point, it's uncomfortable for them. What are some things that you would tell people in those situations, maybe? Like, because to your point, Arvi, you can't get a better result if you're doing the same thing, if you're hiring the same people, type of people.
Right. So you mean it's uncomfortable in the sense of like hiring for the opposite, right?
No, it's
Or
uncomfortable being the person that comes into a scenario where everyone thinks in one particular direction, and then all of a sudden you're like, hey, like, guys, have we considered this? Like, and everyone's like, what do you mean? Like, we all are in agreement now. Like,
I don't know if, I mean, obviously you have to be comfortable going against the grain. And when you hire, even for me specifically, like I like to ask those questions like, hey, how do you feel if everybody's saying, you know, go this way? Are you just going to agree, or you're still going to say your opinion? And I think startups definitely need like not that, I mean, I'm an introvert. I will still say my opinion, maybe in a very polite way, versus an extrovert will just say it and blur it out. So I guess it's not necessarily a personality thing, but it's like you do have to be comfortable saying it. And my stance on it is, even when I've worked for corporations before, is I've said my opinion of where we think we should go and like how we should do it. And if they don't agree with it, I mean, it is what it is. At the end of the day, it's going to be a team decision, but I feel good that I said what I wanted to say. I don't know. How do you feel about that, Kees?
Yeah, I would even say that if you're not okay with going against the grain, you shouldn't be kind of probing startups, because it's very easy not to go against the grain and go with one of the major companies, right? If I land a job at Fang, I could easily just sit there and do my job for ages. But as a person, and this is more of a holistic perspective, I want to work for a company that actually solves a problem. That's the reason why I started working for Nutanix years ago, because I saw that there was a problem, and HCI and that kind of form factor fixed the problem. And now we've extended to something much bigger, and we're solving so much more problems. But I couldn't see myself working for a company that doesn't solve actual problems. So that means that I have a tendency to go against the grain, because I could have taken adventure with the Microsoft of the world, or the Amazons, or any of those larger companies. But it's in me to go, all right, so I think this little thing has so much potential. Let's see what we can do with that. And the other thing that there's a Dutch saying, obviously it's Dutch because that's our culture, and roughly translated, it means without friction, there's no shine. So, and it's like diamonds are made under pressure, something like that. So you need a little bit of friction to make something actually look better than it did before.
Yeah, a little bit of friction.
Yeah, well,
I have a question for you, Kees.
Yeah.
How do you go against the grain? I think it's easier to go against the grain in a smaller startup because you do have, it could be just 5 people on the team,
Sure.
and you have a closer relationship. How do you go against the grain in a much bigger environment like yours? First,
So, first of all, it helps being Dutch.
okay. Number one.
No, it helps. I've said this over and over again. If you haven't seen it yet, there's a really good book called The Culture Map from Aaron Meyer. If you don't have it right now, go on Amazon or whatever your favorite store is and buy one, because it's really good to understanding kind of cultures and how they align with yours. And it's
You said culture map, right?
Culture Map.
I'm going to share it for the chat so that they can
Yeah.
find it.
For me, it was an eye-opener.
I'm going to link to Aaron's website so that we don't make any money for evil conglomerates. That's it, right, Aaron Meyer?
Yep, that's the one. That's a really good book if you're working with different cultures and different kind of nationalities. Gives you a little bit of perspective on how people respond and why they respond the way that they do.
Mm-hmm.
How I go against the grain, typically it is very straightforward for me. I search for my key stakeholders, and it could be different for every one of these situations. And I just ask them if they have time to hop on a call. Hey, I've got this idea. This is what we're doing right now. This is what I think we should be doing. Here's the delta. And I think that is the way to go. What do you think? And then we iterate from there. So here's the status quo. Here's what I think we should do. And here's the delta. Just to make it kind of obvious what the difference is between A and B and what work needs to be done to get to something that is a coherent state of those two situations.
Yeah. So I would say, I mean, and also in a way, you have to come prepared to defend your case, right? Like why you think we should go that way. It's
That's
not just
what
like,
I'm
hey, I
talking
think we
about,
should
guys.
do this.
That's what I'm talking about as far as discomfort or friction. Like maybe I don't want to explain myself to other people. Maybe I don't want to fight with you over my opinion. Maybe I just want to have an opinion that everyone else agrees with. And it seems like what you guys are saying is like, you're probably going to have a rough time in startup life. Yeah. If that's the case. Or
you're just not going to make it that far.
I mean, it's interesting that you bring that up, because if you look at the team that I have, there's Dutch people, English people, people from Australia, people from the US. And what I'm seeing right now is that they're adopting kind of bits and pieces out of everyone else's culture.
Mm-hmm.
So the Brit, in this case, David Brett, wonderful guy, very polite, very British. We'll say please after every second sentence, because that's what Brits will do. Now he's becoming a little bit more kind of direct and more focused on his actual messaging. I've had conversations with teams in Latin America where I had the agreement that I would hop on the call 10 minutes later than the original scheduled plan time, because the first 10 minutes was all about family and the weather and all of that, which is fine. But I would just sit there, be very awkward, because obviously they wouldn't be talking in English. They would switch to English after 10 to 15 minutes.
Nice.
That sounds very...
Appreciate it. Yeah.
So that's kind of how I've tried to deal with kind of the cultures, and that's kind of, and to a certain extent, what I've learned is that people like options. So don't go in a hard conversation saying this is the one thing we should be doing. Have that one thing and have 2 or 3 options ready, because that way you have A, you're preparing yourself for it. B, you're giving somebody a choice, and you can steer that with the options you have, but at least you're giving somebody choice, or the feeling that they have a choice.
Is there a... Oh, go ahead.
I'm just going to interrupt with a comment. DJ Eshelman, a lot of people know him in the EUC community. He says he's using a program called the Maxwell Leadership Material, and there's something called a new kind of diversity. Basically, in the tech world, the way I say it is you can train tech, but it's really hard to train character. And I think character is like something that is going to distinguish individuals when we talk about finding gainful employment or joining a team or, starting your own company. I think it really boils down to character at the end. Sorry, Arby, go ahead.
No, I was just going to ask a fun question to Kees. What's been like your most challenging culture you've ever dealt with?
Oh, interesting.
Nobody will take it wrong. Whoever's listening, they'll be fine.
I'm thinking. I won't name a culture as such, but the type of culture that I have difficulties with is the culture that sugarcoats.
So you're more like the direct, tell me how it is.
Yeah, that's how we like within the team. That's how we operate, but also that's how I tend to operate.
Yeah,
which is something that I adjusted slightly depending on who I talk to. If you're talking to senior leadership, even from my perspective, sometimes you have to dial it down just a little bit. Right. But in generally speaking, I think that we as an industry could benefit for more like directly getting towards the point versus sugarcoating and working our way around things, whatever that thing might be. I think there's a something to be said to be to the point, direct, open, honest, and have a good conversation.
It sounds like you're calling out people in America from the South.
I'm very happy that you pronounce it, that those are your words and not mine. I'm not calling out anybody.
So the reason why I say that, so I live outside of Boston, right? And people have a lot of opinions about Bostonians or whatnot. But what they say about Bostonians are that they are kind, but they're not necessarily nice.
Right.
And they say about people in the South that they're very nice, or they're very, nice, but they're not necessarily kind.
I can see the Southern people just talking a ton of analogies to try and get to the point, and sometimes you get lost in it.
Wow, guys, believe it or not, we have 1 minute left. It always goes by so fast. So I'll just leave you. We'll leave you all with closing words. What would you guys like to finish off with here? Maybe we'll go with our guest first.
I think it's a recap of what we already said, right? So if you go against the grain, make sure that you're prepared, have options so you can have a conversation and you can have people pick that option. And I think that's the number one thing that I've learned in my last 12 years at Nutanix is that cultures are different. Be prepared for that and make sure that you come prepared for any conversation where you go against the grain.
Yeah. I'll add a little bit to that in the sense that just because you might not fit in one culture doesn't mean, the next one's not going to be for you. A lot of times, I'm a lot involved in the startup world. So it's a lot of, sometimes all this like, oh, they don't fit here. That doesn't mean that you're bad at what you do or anything like that. It just wasn't for you. So try something else. And there's no right or wrong answer, if you prefer startups or not, or if you prefer a big corporation or not.
Right. I would just like to show my sign of appreciation, everyone, for joining us live. Kees, RV, thank you again. You're the best for being here. And we'll see you guys next time. I think we have another really interesting guest, so I won't spoil anything, but I think we're really getting going now. So thank you all, and enjoy your Friday.
Yeah. Thank you, Kees.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye.